And then name. Okay, introducing on my show now, we have not one but two guests now. It's a pleasure to introduce and interview the Hi-fi Sean, that's Hi-fi Sean, and David McAlmont on my radio show. Hello to the both of you. How is life treating you? And where are you two right now at this present moment?
I'm speaking
I
to you from sunny South London. It's not sunny.
I am speaking to you from not sunny East London.
Okie dokie. So
Well,
yeah, you
we're south and east. We're covering the one half of London.
so England, UK, the capital. Brilliant. So with you guys, you don't really need any introduction because your names are quite well known. But how did you two both kind of like meet each other, get to know each other and make music?
Well, that was from an album I made in God, 6, 7 years ago. I need to actually need to check when it actually was. But yeah, so I made an album and I asked lots of guest artists to write the song and sing the song. And David was one of those artists, and we met one afternoon in Brixton, had a coffee, crossed the road, made the record, became friends, and look where we are now.
Ah,
Yeah, but Sean, you always fast forward.
I know, it's easy.
You always fast forward because I mean, we met on Facebook,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
I think that's a valid way of meeting these days. But we were Facebook friends first, and then because we were Facebook friends,
I
that
always
was
just mean it like in person. When did you meet in person and, physically? So it was that afternoon we recorded was the first time we physically met, wasn't it? Yeah, yeah.
great. And would you say like after that, the rest was history? Everything was just took care of itself. You haven't looked back
the
since.
rest was beautiful music.
Ah,
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I was just like looking back in it now, there was a lot of sitting about this living room that I'm in right now and playing music and jamming on tracks that I kind of played and which some of them ended up being on Happy Ending, the first album.
yeah,
So yeah, there was a lot of. It was kind of nice because there was no rush. It was no this let's make an album and then try and make it in 6 months. We spent a long time just getting to know each other musically and kind of jamming. And it wasn't like we were a band in a rehearsal room because usually the first year or two when you're in a band, you're in a rehearsal room and that's how you create your sound. We were just kind of recording lots and lots of stuff and then re-recording it and then trying something else and then trying something else. And it was like my idea was let's just try and record tons of stuff, and then eventually the way we sound will become apparent out of all that stuff. Because that's what happens in a rehearsal room. You write
yeah,
songs, and then a bunch of songs become you.
yeah.
So
And then would
that's
you
what.
say it happened like organically then?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So that's why where happy endings started to appear from, and then wham bam, thank you, ma'am. A pandemic happened, and separated us. And we just carried on at a huge, like productive rate, sending stuff backwards and forwards through the internet, even though we were like, only a few miles apart from each other.
yeah,
And, we were just kind of writing from our rooms. And I suppose that's Bunker to Bunker is a very good
yeah,
the track on
yeah,
the Happy Ending album, Bunker to Bunker, is a very good. And we released that as the first single,
yeah.
which was right slap bang in the middle of the lockdown. So yeah,
That's
that's
the excitement. That's where the excitement is. It's after the experiments that we did with Happy Ending. I think we tried lots of different things, but I actually get really excited when Sean sends me a piece of new music because
Would
I it comes together easily. It's so easy that I could be quicker than I am, but actually I take my time to I allow days to pass to like kind of get to that point where I'm really happy with what I'm sending to him. But it's
yeah,
always a really great thing when my WhatsApp goes ping and it's a piece of music from Sean because it's another Hi-fi Sean
yeah.
David Mcalmont track coming down the pipe.
Would you
to
say
be
you
honest.
both
I was
uh,
going to say he
oh
was
yeah,
talking a bit slow recently because I haven't sent a track for a few months. But I think the Twilight Daylight being so close together and so intense, um, you know, slightly burnt me out a little bit, but I've got so much in my head, so don't worry. There's lots
I
of
mean, the thing is that even if we did, even if you didn't write for another 12 months, we still have an album in what there somewhere, don't we?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, gonna go on to the album very, very shortly. But I just wanted to ask you both: are you both like experimental, adventurous in the studio, like having fun with sounds?
Oh God, yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, right. Songs for me musically, songs are written with no formula. They just come from ideas. I'm an ideas man. I'll suddenly one night kind of go, oh, I wonder if I put this drum beat on top of this, on top of this, on top of this, what's going to happen? And then I start, or I'll sit and I'll be on behind the keyboard and I write four chords and I think, oh, they sound nice. I wonder how I could present them in a different style. And that's when I start messing about. And then and David writes the same as me, I construct and then I deconstruct to construct again. You do that with your melodies and lyrics. So it's that thing where sometimes the first thing that I do isn't the first thing. I'll listen to it and think, nah, I'll deconstruct it and then try and make something else out of it. But that's a good thing about me is as a DJ and producer, I do a lot of remixes. So in a way, I've actually remixed tracks that I've written before I've sent them to David.
Wow.
And I'll do it and then I'll kind of go, but I wonder if it would sound good in this way. Like there's a lot of that on Daylight where I
Yes.
suddenly went, no, this is too normal, if that's the right word, or too obvious. And then I would deconstruct it and remix it and then go, oh, and so yeah, it's like when you were a child and you were told to have fun with words. It's like I'm having fun with music and David's having fun with words. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. I was a bit of a wordsmith in my secondary school, and I was never too far away from a dictionary. I loved it, swatting on new lyrics for words and everything. And do you have fun with like, writing lyrics as well? That aspect of it.
I do now because I've come up with a technique that I stick to, and I think it works really well with what we do because I think it's it doesn't matter where I am, what time of day or night it is, what the situation is. If my list is handy, I keep it in my phone. If a thought comes into my head, I just write. I just put it in there. And so you just have these lines that I've been doing this list since before I met Sean, so it's getting on for 10 years old now.
Yeah.
So anything that you hear on Twilight or Daylight or Happy Ending could have been written last week or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But we were speaking about this earlier about the song Drift Away. There's a line in there, are you at the moon base? I wrote that down years ago, and nothing that Sean gave me suited it until that music came along. It's like I can say it now. And so that's a lot of fun for me to know that I'm pulling all of these different ideas from different times of day and different seasons and different years and compiling them into a single lyric. The thing that the power of that for me is that the listener can tell their own story. Because something about doing it that way, it almost sounds as if though I didn't write it because I'm not sitting down. What used to be really painful was like sitting down there with a blank sheet of paper, trying to come up with, and I had to find a way out of that.
Yeah.
Some people say that's the technique that David Bowie used, but I think David Bowie actually took things that were said,
Yeah.
whereas what I do is oh, I like the sound of that thought, and
Mhm.
I jot it down and keep it.
Yeah, sure. I better talk about your new music then. So, your new track, is called "Sorry I Made You Cry," and it was just released in mid-February. And on the cover, it's got a pink heart. Of course, Valentine's Day is in mid-February. Was that the kind of theme, the topical theme you wanted to kind of attempt, reach out, with like love or passion? Was that specific, or was it just coincidence that happened?
It's interesting because it's we were thinking when we came up with this with the concept of these sibling albums, we were thinking winter, summer, summer, winter, but actually somehow we ended up doing daylight and night, daytime and nighttime. So even though this Twilight is supposed to be a wintry album, it's got a lot more to do with night. And I was also thinking that we call it Twilight, but another good title for this album could have been Night Drive, which is a song on the album because it
Yeah,
does sound like someone taking a journey or an odyssey, as I like to say, through the night.
yeah. That makes sense. We'll come on to Night Drive actually. And Sorry I Made You Cry. Would you say that's one of the lead singles from your new album, Twilight? That's track number two. Um, and would you say this album track is more experimental? It's the longest track on the record.
Twilight, the song Twilight,
Oh
yeah.
yes, was it Twilight? Yeah, track two. I think
Track
it's
two, Twilight was it's actually a song we've had for quite a while. It made lots of different journeys. Ended up um being here and originally the kind of like the concept because my dogs are in it and David's favorite bird song that I can't, where did you record that again? The bird song you recorded
You
it
know, that's a
in.
blackbird.
Is it a blackbird?
A
Yeah, I saw
blackbird.
it. Yeah, somebody said that the other day, didn't they? But where was
Hmm.
it? Where did you record that sound?
South London.
Right, right. Okay. So it was kind of to the idea of Twilight, that track Twilight was I like the idea of it feeling like safe space, like a safe space. So it has to be very luscious and warm and one of my favorite places is I live across from this old East London graveyard where I walk with my dogs every day. So one day my dogs were having a bit of a laugh and barking at each other and I recorded them and I put them on the track because I thought it'd be a nice way to immortalize them and just this kind of like a kind of track that contains lots of little personal happy elements and it's slightly wonky because there's lots of, you know, layers of vocals that have been detuned and some are backwards, some are stretched, some are, I would say it's like the most experimental track in the album,
Hmm.
sonically, because there's a lot of experimentation on the album production wise, but that track actually came song wise, music wise for me from experimenting with things. So I didn't sit down and write a song. I sat down and done lots of techniques to see what would happen if I did this, did this, and then trying to join them all together. And it took weeks of work to do that backing track, but it eventually, it was one of those things in my head, I kind of had an idea what I wanted it to sound like, and I could never achieve it. And then one day I did, and I kind of pursue that sometimes.
Yeah,
I'm a bit of a, I suppose that's a good thing and a bad thing,
yeah,
but but I've managed to live with that.
yeah,
I managed to know when I'm going down the rabbit hole and to
yeah.
stop.
Yeah, I'll
And
ask I'll ask David a question now. One track I like the title as is Uptown Downtown because you hear many songs called Uptown and Downtown, but not combined. So maybe if I can ask David a little bit more about that one. When I listened to it, I found it was kind of just a little bit moodier, more kind of downbeat. Maybe would that be an interesting analogy?
Well, like I was saying before, um, it's got a lot to do with time and place. And at the beginning of last year, I went on this big trip because I'm doing some research for something, and I was in New York for part of it, and I was on the subway,
Oh yeah,
and I just thought Uptown, Downtown. That sounds good. I'll write that down. Then I came to London, and Sean gave me that piece of music, and I just thought, oh, Uptown, Downtown. So it's about being in the middle of the city and about somebody being far away, but you can get to them by train. So it's like, well, if you're downtown, I'll come and meet you somewhere, then we can go back to your place. But if you're at home, I'll get the train and come to you. But I liked it because it's Sean sounds like he's been quite R&B on this one.
yeah, there was definitely an R&B element to this. Yeah. As I love the production in a lot of R&B records. Even if I don't like the record, I love the production.
yeah,
I love the sense of minimalism without it sounding minimalist, if that makes sense. I'm not a minimalist in production really, but I've learned now that sometimes space lends to the vocals sounding amazing.
Mm.
So it's there's productions you can have a lot of fun with. You learn all the time. That's what there isn't a day goes by where I'm messing about with music where I'm not learning something.
And the Equinox's children. I know in the Equinox next month in March, if I'm right. But so what's this one about? The Equinox's children.
Um, it's up to you really. So really the story of all of the stuff that we do for me is well we just Sean does the music. I see which lyrics work well together, and then the story that is being told
Mm.
often surprises me, but there is that chorus that speaks about impacting like asteroids, and it's about the effect that we have. And I suppose referring to oneself as an equinox's child is just it all depends on what the weather is doing, and my mood and how we get on. And so you have this kind of checklist of and then the slumber of starlit dreams and heaven's deep lagoon and what the planets do, and it's just like, well, all of these things come together. I mean, my probably my favorite songwriters ever are the Bee Gees, and they're masters at that kind of thing, and I do aspire to that kind of songwriting that like puts you on the street but with an awareness of the whole universe operating at the same time. And I think that's something that Sean's music really
Yeah.
inspires me. It's like, yeah, we are regular people walking about, but there's a whole universe happening around us.
Yeah, sure. One of my notes as well was about Night Drive as well. But as you mentioned, you found that you thought the listener would relate to this more at night, listening.
Yeah, I mean, I drive and I do a lot of driving at night, obviously being a DJ as well. And also, yeah, I drive a lot to the coast to get away. And there's been times where at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I find myself being the only person on the motorway. And unless you're a driver, it's quite hard to describe what that's like because when you've got a car in front of you, you're always focused because you're always focusing on what's in front of you and what's around you. But see, when you're completely by yourself and you can see like half a mile in the distance and the moon in the sky. And there was a time once, it was last year, I was driving at night and I was literally the only car going through country roads and the moon was in the sky. So that's the other thing. It's amazing. You don't realize how the moon lights up the dark
Mm.
because when the moon's not there, it's pitch black. Because I've been in the opposite situation where I've been driving and I'm like, I can't see a thing. All I can see is the light in front of me from my car headlights. But when the moon is a full moon, it's like having the sun. You can
Mm.
see. And I was driving and the trees were coming across. They were like the trees had, when they sometimes grow over a road. And it was literally one of the most fairy tale moments I've ever had. But I tested a lot of the music that I was working on, and even before I sent David some of the music, I was testing on driving, listening to it at night because I kind of thought this has to work in a car at night time, or it's not going to have that element of being an album about Twilight. And I did scrap a few things. There was a few things I made. I thought, no, that's too, that's kind of finding that thing of keeping somebody's interest, but make it sound like it's not pushing your interest too much because you've kind of got to slightly get lost in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's very, very intriguing.
Well,
Um,
that's the great thing about the feedback we're getting back from the record. I've heard immerse, I've heard lose yourself in, and I've heard bathing in. So
You think,
what?
oh, I like that.
Yeah, no, but yeah, it is an album. I get lost in this record more than I do in the other two, I would
It's a
say.
very, it's a very unique album, and then it's hard because you get really close to your records, and it takes you a while to kind of detach yourself from them to be able to learn about them again. I mean, it's only now that I'm kind of getting into Happy Ending and what was going on then.
yeah,
But Twilight, I've really managed to because I detached myself from it for a long time before it was released. And now I'm kind of like, because people are now listening to it and you get their feedback, I'm starting to learn what we've actually done. And I think we've made something so unique
yeah,
because think about it, there's so many albums released every day that are just albums, which are just collections of songs or collections of what a band's doing at that time. Or, there's a hit single and then another 11 songs. This album is completely conceptual. In fact, the last two albums, but this album more so, it sounds like night. It sounds like it was made for night. And it sounds like it soothes you while you're listening to it. It does everything that it says
Yeah.
on the tin.
Yeah,
When
and the
you buy
Twilight the
into
album.
it. Yeah.
It's out now on streaming platforms, as well as your lead single, Sorry I Made You Cry. And is it mainly on, like, streaming platforms, or will there be a plan to release it on a cassette maybe in time?
It's on vinyl and CD.
Fine.
No, no,
Nice.
cassettes are a hard one because it's actually more expensive these days to make a cassette than it is to sell them. So I'm afraid if anybody wants to make a cassette Twilight, just download it off the internet and make your own cassette.
Oh wow. Um, I, I better ask, do you have any plans for live music at all, doing shows, performing to a
Yeah,
live audience? Is that coming up?
we're going out on tour all the way during May. We're supporting quite a well-known artist that we can't say at the moment because they haven't announced it. So we have to wait till they announce it
Yeah.
before you can say, "Oh, we're touring with blah blah blah." So, but we're touring from I think it's May the 11th to May the 26th or something, and it's Scotland, England, and a little bit of Wales.
Yeah, and you're all on Facebook as well. Do you have your own separate, like, pages, or do you have one combined as well?
Yeah, we
There's
have.
Hi-fi Sean. Well, Sean's on Facebook and Hi-fi Sean David Mcalmont on Facebook. We're both on Instagram. I'm kind of like seeing how I get on with Blue Sky and Threads. But yeah, we're not on TikTok, are we?
I do actually have a TikTok profile that I've never used. I think I've posted pictures of my dogs and that's about it. I don't get on
Yeah,
with TikTok. I find
yeah,
it too complicated.
yeah. Well, I just wanted to ask David one final question. Where obviously you were in quite a successful band in the 90s. In 1995 you had that quite well, it was a big hit with Yes. And do you still hear back from people, with that record? Is it good to see it, being rerun on Top of the Pops, when you see yourself on there? Or do you feel you're in a different chapter now?
Well, I haven't seen it on Top of the Pops for a while. I don't really like looking at it on Top of the Pops because in the day when we recorded it, and you hear this a lot with records now, you hear a lot of vary speeding, right? So you record the record, and then the decision is, oh, this could be a bit more up tempo, and so they tweak it. But because it wasn't digital and it was tape, that means it pitches it up.
Oh,
So when I was singing it on Top of the Pops back in the day, I was like singing like, it's already right at the top of my range. And then you sing it like, sped up slightly, it's even higher. And so that final note that everybody loves, I couldn't quite reach
yeah.
it.
Were they
And so
good
for
times?
me watching Top of the Pops is just like that whole agony until you get to that point where it's like he's not gonna do it, he's not gonna do it.
Did you sing live on Top of the Pops?
Yeah, because they that was when they made Rick Blackfield came in
Uh,
and then changed it from miming to live to the backing
oh,
track. So the
wow.
backing track was very sped.
You did right. I was quite lucky because in the Soup Dragons we just mimed, and it was
Yeah,
really, I think it really
wasn't
freaked
something
me out.
like that.
It was the day when you turn up because you do like about five rehearsals on Top of the Pops before you actually played. It goes on all day, as you know, and
Yeah.
the first, we walk on, and they handed me this microphone, and it was fake. It was a plastic mic. I mean, it weighed as much as a pen. And that was the thing that really threw me because I didn't know what to do with it. It just felt really alien that this thing that didn't have any weight. And it didn't really look like a mic up close, but from far away it did. And
Watch that now.
yeah, there was like, and it was completely mined, it was
Great. Well, thanks for sharing some memories there. But yeah, your new album out, Twilight, out on all good outlets. And I just want to say thank you both for joining me on today's show, where Sean Dixon, Hi-Fi Sean, aka, and David McCormant.
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah, you're
Thank
very
you.
welcome.